Good morning, everyone. So in this video you and I are going to talk about Elm. So let's get into it. Now let's define Elm first and foremost. Elm is a functional programming language on top of JavaScript, and it is designed in order to help you with building graphical interfaces, to help you manage state, create visual components and all that good stuff that you can do in JavaScript. And it is the sort of flavor of application development that you will hear is, I'm not saying single page application necessarily, because you can do more than just that, but it is the sort of, it falls in the same type of category as Vue and Angular and React and so forth. So what Elm is bringing to the table that is a little bit different from what the others are is that it's not just a JavaScript-ish type of language. It's actually a language in its own right, and it very heavily emphasizes the composability and functional aspects of programming. So a subscriber of mine asked what I think about these things, and this is one of those rare occasions where the amount of stuff that I have to say is going to favor. Don't take this as a negative tone, because this is going to sound a little bit negative, because that's, in my opinion, there's really only one thing that I like about Elm. Everything else I think is completely a swing. It's just a swing and a miss. It is a complete swing and a miss. Let me tell you why. So let's start by looking at the assumptions that are happening here in Elm. So the first and foremost assumption, which I think is absolutely horrendously wrong, is that functional programming matters so much that you will benefit from having a functional programming language. You won't. You will not. There is absolutely nothing that indicates that the functional aspects of programming are so great that they overweigh everything else. If you look at, and I actually think that this is, if there is a biggest mistake on Elm's side, this is the biggest one. And that is the assumption that functional programming is so important that it's going to trump everything else. If you look at Haskell, I think that Elm and Haskell have made the exact same mistake, or maybe the exact same realization. It kind of depends on your perspective. I wouldn't say that Haskell necessarily, it kind of depends on the intentions when you designed Haskell, because Haskell originally, as far as I understand, was not designed to be a enterprise programming language, and if it was, has sorely failed. There are absolutely advocates out there. If you go and look at the different Lambda conferences, there are people who will make tech talks that will say that functional Haskell is not for production and other such myths. Am I saying that Haskell cannot be used in production level software? No, I'm not. But I'm saying that there are 100 better reasons to use something else than Haskell. And if you want to fight me on this, that's okay. You can look around and see how many job offers you will get for Haskell enterprise programming as opposed to anything else. Now, this is of course not proof that one thing is better than the other, but I'm saying that popularity and adoption rate is a good indicator of how well the language has been designed for mainstream consumption. And at the end of the day, we are about mainstream consumption. It's the same thing that I see in the music industry. Let's talk about Justin Bieber, for example. Now, he is probably one of the most hated artists in the world, but he's also one of the most popular. And I was saying this to my friend who is a music fanatic just the other day, and I'm not a music fanatic. I enjoy music, but not to the scale of actually knowing a lot of stuff about different artists and how good they are. And he was telling me about all these kind of non-obscure super guitarists and singers who are immensely talented, but they're, you know, not the sort of people that I, as just a regular old mainstream consumer, would know about. And so I told my friend, have you ever thought about that there is a sweet spot for things? Because take Justin Bieber is not the most talented singer in the world. He will never be, but he doesn't have to be. He just has to be good enough so that the popularity of him as a brand is at an all-time high. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you are the best at one thing. The best guitarist in the world is not the guitarist that makes the most amount of money, because there are other factors that play in when it comes to being popular and having a big adoption rate. Most of the really truly talented super musicians of the world are not they're not even on TV. Like, they are not in the public eye in the same fashion as these promoted superstars who are maybe decent at singing, but they are being promoted in a different way. And the big companies, the big promotion companies, the record companies and so forth, they are not trying to push some obscure little super guitarist as they are trying to push somebody like Beyonce or Justin Bieber or whoever you want to call it, whatever. And this is the same, it's the same thing with Haskell. It's the same idea with Elm. It's the same problem Elm has. When you niche yourself too much, you will lose your sweet spot, your adoption sweet spot. You will, in other words, become so specialized and so focused on one thing that only a very small amount of people will be even interested in you. And maybe that's your case. Maybe because let's be honest here, not everybody is interested in mass adoption rate. Maybe some things are actually designed for a niche type of person or niche type of group, and that's fine. But when it comes to Elm as a programming approach, there is no way in my mind, I don't think it will ever happen. I don't think Elm will ever compete with React, Angular, or Vue, or one of the bigger frameworks in terms of adoption rate. That doesn't mean that Elm hasn't done something truly great. You may not know this, but Redux, which is probably the most popular state management system that we have, especially in React, I mean, that entire idea is just genius. Redux is absolute genius, and it was inspired by Elm. The original creator was inspired by Elm and the way that Elm handles state management, because it's very, very similar. It's basically the same thing. So that is what I think Haskell and Elm and things of that nature, these highly specialized tools bring to the table. They will give you good ideas, but they will not be the best choice for actual production level software. I would actually say that I think you are going to have to look to find a company that standardizes on Elm. And I would personally avoid going, it is really, really high risk to do full-time Elm development. Because once again, and especially if you're a junior, dear God, if you are a junior programmer, do not start with Elm. Do not. If you have to pick something, pick anything besides Elm. Because if you don't know regular old JavaScript, if you don't know vanilla JavaScript, Elm will not actually teach you the skills that you need to survive anywhere else outside of Elm. Elm is it's a completely different language on top of JavaScript that transpiles down to JavaScript. In other words, if you come to me and you say that you're a master Elm developer, you will actually not know JavaScript, most likely. So that's the second thing I don't like about Elm. It's also a swing and a miss. I don't think that it's a good idea to put a completely different language on top of JavaScript and try to transpile it down to JavaScript, because all you're going to do is that you're going to create a situation where you're not actually writing the thing that you should be writing for the platform that you are working on, which means that JavaScript is notoriously difficult to do to make good transpilations of. It's why you have the norm is still that you use JavaScript. Everybody hates JavaScript for a lot of different reasons, but nobody has actually been able to create a transpilation or any of the type languages. They all brag about all their transpiles, but they are not the norm. No one is using, say, Go to JavaScript transpilation or Scala to JavaScript transpilation at large scale. JavaScript is still being written vanilla style, and it is being written for a very, very good reason. It is the language that was designed to run in the browser, which means that anything above it is now going to have to cater to making sure that you have you basically need the different types of, you need an entire ecosystem of tools and people who maintain that transpiler and maintain that higher level language on top of JavaScript, so that everything that you want to do in JavaScript is possible to do in the other language as well. And that's not possible because JavaScript moves quicker than any of the other languages. You literally have to have people who sit and just kind of wait and make sure that they are in touch with all of the communities and all the discussions in the different stages of JavaScript's development, and then they have to add that in to their solution so that you are not limited in what you can do. Because if a feature comes out in JavaScript that isn't in Elm, you're screwed. That's basically how it works. It's the same thing with all these other. That's why I honestly believe that you will not succeed in creating a nice language on top of JavaScript that gives you what you need. I don't think so. And then we have things such as, all right, you want to run things in the node environment versus we're running things in the browser. There's all kinds of complexity that comes with trying to just put another language on top of JavaScript. I don't think it can be done. I think a much more sane approach is to fix JavaScript as a language. Basically, I will tell you right now, I'm highly opinionated, of course. Just add TypeScript. Because as soon as you add types to JavaScript, almost 90% of, like, virtually all of the issues disappear immediately. And if you, I'll gladly fight you on this, but I'm still saying that, yes, you can argue that there are still problems, and there are always going to be problems, but I just want to point out that syntax-wise and the power that you have in JavaScript is not far away from Java. And Java is, yeah, you can also argue that Java isn't a very nice language, but it is one of the biggest, if not the biggest language in the world. So just saying, it's not, I keep going back to, I think that Elm has niched it has made a fatal mistake in assuming that functional programming is so valuable that it's going to be the only thing that factors in, and it's not. I think that what Elm is going to be is that it's going to be what Haskell is today. It's going to be a functional programming nerd fest for people who really, really enjoy functional programming, but I don't think it will ever reach a point where it's going to rival React or any of the more popular languages. I actually think that it's more likely that these frameworks will be shuffled out of existence over time, and we will go back to the web standards when some things such as maybe web components or similar things are becoming a more popularized thing and a little bit more standardized. Those are my 2 cents on the matter. So to summarize, Elm has, I want to thank Elm for giving us Redux, or for being a contributor to making that happen, because Redux is absolutely amazing. Apart from that, I think that you should try out Elm if you want to practice your functional programming skills. But if you're looking for job opportunities, Elm is not the way to go. That's how I think about it. Have a great day.